Hi, this is Jeremy Vinup with J&J Power Sports, and welcome back to video number 2 of our 4-part video series on how to get your 49cc scooter wicked fast. Now, in video number 1, we discussed how increasing the airflow into our engine helps increase horsepower, which increases the speed of our scooter. But we also learned that increased airflow alone won't give us the increased performance that we're looking for. There's another part of the formula. Now in this video, we're going to discuss that second part of the formula to give us that increased horsepower and speed. And we're also going to show you the secret behind the J&J Power Sports Super Flow carburetor in the special parts that you learned about in video number 1. Now, before we get into that, I want to discuss and show you some of the different parts of the carburetor and what makes them up. So to do that, I'm going to step out here around the workbench and get right here in front of the camera so we can discuss this. Now, this carburetor here, I went ahead and I drilled out the bottom of it. You'll notice on a lot of your carburetors, especially if you have new scooters, there's actually no screws in the bottom of here. The EPA actually makes you know, they're not allowed to ship them into the country when you can actually take the bowl off and do adjustments on them and things like that. So you have to drill them out. So, but anyway, let's discuss some of the main parts. Now, first part I want to talk about is what we call your needle valve. So hopefully you can see it inside of here. If you look directly into your carburetor, you'll see a black piece of plastic. And if you look underneath of it, there's going to be a long, slender piece of metal. That's actually going to be your needle valve. That valve is going to go down inside of your jetting, which we'll talk about in a minute to kind of, you know, help restrict fuel flow. Second part we want to talk about is going to be your choke. This is an electronic choke. It actually plugs into your scooter, and when you start it in the morning or whenever you start it, you'll hear the RPMs come up, and then once it gets warm, those RPMs will go back down, because what the choke does is allow the maximum amount of fuel to start the machine. Now, next thing I want to discuss is what I call your butterfly, and it's actually your throttle. So if you look inside of here, you'll see a brass piece of metal that's completely closed off because of our throttle is in the off position. So when I turn the throttle open, you'll see that butterfly move in there. And once you turn it all the way wide open, this butterfly is completely parallel to the top and the bottom of the carburetor inside. Now, when you open it up just like that, that's going to be wide open on your scooter, and that's going to give you the maximum speed and the maximum power. Now, some people think that if you adjust somewhere up in your handlebar that you can actually open this butterfly up more. That's actually not true. You can do that a little bit. That's only if your throttle cable isn't adjusted correctly, because once you max this out, it won't turn anymore. So you can get the same thing by adjusting your throttle correctly. That way it opens it completely up. Next thing we want to talk about is your idle adjustment screw. Right here, you can screw this thing in or you can screw it out to set the idle on your scooter. The last thing I want to talk about is going to be the jetting. Okay. Now what the jetting does, this increases fuel flow. Okay, so you have your main jet, which is going to be right here, and also what they call your pilot jet, which is going to be down inside of there. So now that we've kind of discussed and you kind of understand a little bit how the carburetor works. I know that was pretty fast, but let's go ahead and look at the second part of getting our scooters wicked fast. So part 1 of the formula was the airflow. Part 2 of the formula is increasing the fuel that actually goes into our engines. The more fuel and air we can put into our engines, the bigger the combustion that we're going to have, giving us increased combustion equals increased horsepower equals top speed. So that's what we're looking for. Now, in every engine, there's going to be a balance, okay? So how do we get more fuel into our engine? Well, it's increased the size of the jets that are in this carburetor are going to give us more fuel. Now, especially in scooter engines and smaller engines, there's going to be a balance, and it's very critical to get your fuel and air mixture just right, or your engine won't run efficiently. So not enough fuel into our engine makes our engines run lean, robbing us of horsepower. All right, too big of a jet in our engine puts way too much fuel in there, causing the engine to run way too rich, and again, robbing us of horsepower. Now that brings me to the secret behind the Superflow carburetor, and that secret is precision jetting, okay? Precision jetting. So what we've done, we have tested several different jets, several different combinations of jets in our carburetor here to get the maximum amount of horsepower possible. So we've actually figured it out to where we can put these jets into one of our Superflow carburetors, and it works extremely well for the GY6 engine. We actually put one on the other day. I had a customer who called me up, asked me if I was still selling scooters because he knew I took most of my business online. And we talked about the scooter that I sold him last year. It's a 2014 Tao Thunder 50cc. It's got about 5,100 miles on it, and he's still riding it, and he was having some issues, and he was looking to maybe possibly buy a new scooter, and I told him about the Superflow carburetor. And he was actually getting about 31 to 35 miles an hour, you know, depending on the riding conditions, you know, 31 going up hills and such, and 35, you know, usually, you know, on flat ground. And so only thing we did, we bolted the Superflow up directly, you know, to his scooter. He jumped on it and we tested it. I use a GPS tracker when I test it. We also tested it in the car to make sure it was accurate. And he went from 31 miles an hour to going up the hills in his riding condition to 38 miles per hour. And also he went from 35 miles an hour on regular riding conditions all the way up to 42 miles per hour. So that was a huge increase in speed. We're talking 7 miles per hour, taking 5 minutes in just bolting on a carburetor. So now that we know that more fuel and more air into our engines is the key to increasing horsepower, but there's still more to this formula. Now that we have more air and more fuel, we need to combust that air and fuel. And we need to do it very quickly, and we have to do it as efficiently as possible. If we don't combust all the air and all the fuel, we're wasting all of that potential energy. And what it's doing is it's actually just going out the exhaust pipe, so we're just wasting money. So that's what we're going to talk about in video number 3. How to take all of this new air and fuel mixture that we're putting into our engines with the carburetor and with the new, the new air box, how to combust that efficiently to get maximum horsepower. That's going to be in video number 3, so you definitely want to stay tuned to that. So this is Jeremy Vinup with J&J Power Sports. I hope you learned something new in this video. I hope you got some value out of it. If you would, go down below, leave me some comments, ask some questions. I'd be happy to help you out. Again, this is Jeremy Vinup with J&J Power Sports. I look forward to seeing you in video number 3 when we discuss on how to combust all of this air and fuel mixture that we're now pouring down into our engine. So have a great day. We'll see you in video number 3.